So as we celebrate the solemnity of the most holy body and blood of Christ, the Church gives us these readings. The Gospel says that Jesus spoke to the crowds about the kingdom of God. Also, Jesus is speaking to us about the kingdom of God. Jesus comes to bring about a kingdom. It's a kingdom where God truly reigns. It's a kingdom of justice, a kingdom of peace, of righteousness. And with his person, he comes to bring this kingdom. And the reason he comes to establish this kingdom was because there was a fallen kingdom. The prince of this world was the evil one. And this was a kingdom of injustice, of evil, which brought forth suffering and sickness. And so as a sign that he is establishing this kingdom with his person, he also healed those who were needed to be cured. It's a sign that the kingdom has arrived. And so the apostles were listening to Jesus, witnessing what he was doing. And as the day was drawing to a close, the 12 approached him and said, "Dismiss the crowd." So they recognized that the crowd was hungry. They recognized that the crowd needed some food. And so they intercede and ask Jesus, "Dismiss the crowd so that they can go to the surrounding villages and farms and find lodging and provisions. For we are in a deserted place here. There isn't food here. There isn't what they need here. And so send them out." And hopefully we also see the hunger of the crowd. Hopefully we also see that people are hungry. Not so much physical food, but spiritual food. That we also are interceding on behalf of them, asking Jesus, give them something to eat. We see the people that are depressed. We see the people living without hope. We see the people that are living caught in addictions. We see the marriages breaking down. And so we also have this desire. We also intercede on their behalf. Jesus, give them something to eat. Help them. Because we also see the immense crowd and the immense hunger that they have. Send them somewhere where they can be fed, where they can rest. And Jesus could have fed the crowd in many different ways. Also, he can feed the crowd today and their hunger in many different ways. But the way he chooses to feed the crowd then and now is with this answer. He said to them, as he says to us, "Give them some food yourselves. I see their hunger. I know what they need. You give it to them." They replied, 5 loaves and 2 fish are all we have. And I think we say the same thing. We don't have very little. We have a little, but compared to the crowd, compared to the immense hunger, we don't have enough. We can't even begin. If I begin to give what I have, it'll be ridiculous. I'll run out. I don't even have enough for one person. How can you possibly be asking me to feed this immense crowd? We're in a deserted place. And it says, unless we go ourselves and buy some food for all these people, maybe I can somehow go out there, maybe somehow get it. But they've just heard Jesus speaking about the kingdom. They've just witnessed his acts. And so Jesus tells them to arrange them in groups of 50, have them sit down. And then taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he said the blessing over them, broke them, and gave them to the disciples to set before the crowd. And so Jesus takes the little bit that they have, blesses it, and he gives it to them. Give them what I'm giving you. Pass on to them what I'm giving to you. Because as I'm giving this to you, I'm thinking of them. As I'm giving this to you, I want to feed them through you. And so this reading prefigures the Last Supper. It's what we heard in the second reading. Because Jesus makes the same act. He takes bread, he blesses it, he breaks it, and he gives it. It's what we heard in the second reading. On the night he was handed over, he took bread, and after he had given thanks, broke it, and said, "This is my body that is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, also the cup after supper, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me." What he's giving them, what he's giving us, is something divine. And so, humanly speaking, it's true. 5 loaves and 2 fish are not enough. Humanly speaking, it's ridiculous to think that this can feed the crowd. Also, what we have, humanly speaking, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense if we're seeing things with human eyes. But if we recognize that what Jesus Christ is giving us is something divine, then the possibilities are different. Then we can do more than we can even ask or imagine. Then this food that we're receiving is enough to feed this crowd. And it's what the apostles experienced. And they could have said, "I'm not going to even begin. I'm not going to start. I'm not going to give the little that I have. They'll just laugh at me." And we can do the same. We cannot even begin. I don't have anything to give. It's not worth even beginning. But what they experienced was that they gave, and it fed someone, and then they had more. And so they gave that away, and then they had more, and they gave that away. And then the more they gave, the more they had. And at the end, it says, they were satisfied. They were satisfied with what they received. The bread that Jesus Christ gave them satisfied the crowd. Not only did it satisfy the crowd, it says, and when the leftover fragments were picked up, they filled 12 wicker baskets. There were leftovers. And so it's also true for us. If we give what we receive, if we pass on what we've received, we'll find the same, that it feeds one person. And then they're satisfied. And we have enough to give to someone else. And then we give it to someone else. And then someone else. And not only will they be satisfied, but there'll be leftovers. And so Jesus Christ is establishing the kingdom. He's also healing those who need to be cured. And so we're asked to participate in this act. As I said, Jesus could have fed that crowd in many different ways, but the way he wanted to do it, the way he desired to do it, was through the apostles. And so the immense crowd that's also in a deserted place, there's many ways that Jesus Christ could feed them, but he's decided to use us. He's decided to give us what we need. And so it's through the Word, it's through the Eucharist that he's giving us something that's divine. And so this has the power to feed the hungry crowd, to give them what they're satisfied, because what we are receiving is the only thing that they will be satisfied with. It's the only thing that will satisfy this hunger of the crowd of today. And so, as we enter into this Eucharist, let us believe that it's Jesus Christ himself who's present. It's Jesus Christ himself who's breaking the bread. It's Jesus Christ himself. He's giving us his body and his blood. Something divine, but confident that also what he's giving to us, he's asking us to pass on, to distribute to the crowd. And we'll experience exactly what they experienced, that Jesus has thought of us. He's using us so that the crowd out there that's hungry today can be satisfied and will experience the leftovers.